Hey, my darling listeners and my beautifuls, thank you for joining me for another Self-Care Diaries. I have a very dear mentor with me today. I feel very blessed that Bruce has chosen to share his time with us today because he's an incredibly busy man. And Bruce has been a big part of my success this year as a speaker. Bruce, welcome. Welcome to the Self-Care Diaries.
Good. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
It's lovely, lovely, lovely. So, there are a lot of us in South Africa that know who Bruce Wade is, but I'm hoping to appeal to an American market or at least an overseas market as well. So who is Bruce Wade?
Bruce Wade. Bruce Wade is a person who's come a very long journey. So I've got a CV about yay thick, and I've done everything from I used to be a merchant navy officer. I've done computers. I've done corporate work. At one stage, I was a implementation officer. I had a gold Amex card that had no limit. I had a laptop and a phone, and I used to live on airplanes, flying around between here and Europe on a regular basis, doing implementations for big corporates and all that. And then I woke up one day and I realized that I've got enough money to buy anything that I want, but I wasn't happy. And that coincided, luckily, with being retrenched while I was in Amsterdam. And the company, that was when that .com bubble went poof and popped. And so they closed down the EMEA offices, which included us. And I came back to Cape Town, took 6 months off, wrote my first book, and opened my own company. And since then, I've done a number of things. I've probably opened and closed a number of companies. And since 2004-ish, been coaching various people in entrepreneurship, systematic thinking, strategy, and creating wealth out of ideas. So that is where I'm at. And today I'm known as Batman for Business. As you can see, all the bats behind me, they're my buddies, and I draw a lot of wisdom from the animal, the bat, and it's also very close to my heart because of the name. Bruce Wade is very close to Bruce Wayne, which is Batman for those people who don't follow the comic books. And so I've been known as Batman for many, many years, but really adopted that as part of my essence and who I am. So Batman. And my job title is I'm a strategy adventurer. So I adventure with clients through various levels of strategy. And that's what I do for a living.
So amazing. Tell me, what is the one characteristic of a bat that you embrace?
A bat is able to fly in the complete darkness and is able to turn at full speed flight on its own body length and catch an insect less than 1 millimeter in size in its mouth. And so there are two things we can draw from there. Firstly, they're very agile, and agility has to be the big thing for this year, is being the ability to swivel and pivot, as everybody's called. It's the word of the year other than lockdown. Lockdown and pivot are the two most used words this year. So a bat can definitely swivel because they're very agile, but they can also see in the dark using echolocation. Now, I have this uncanny ability to be able to see and detect things even in complete darkness at my clients. So one of my slogans is, invite me into your darkness and I will show you the light. Because I'm able to bring light into often people's confused, dark quagmire of confusion.
Well, I first-hand experienced that in being on your launch mastermind, the PSASA, the Professional Speakers Association of South Africa's mastermind that you ran, the launch speakers mastermind. And we meet every second week, and through a very dark time as speakers, we didn't know the future, and you definitely brought light into my life, and I'm very, very grateful to you for that.
Thank you.
So you speak about the value that you bring to this world with regards to bringing the light into people's darkness. How is self-care embraced in the work that you do, if at all?
You know, a value that I have is authenticity. And, a lot of people say that because it's a cool thing to say. But I really embrace that. So one of the things that I always do is I will never coach or teach a topic that I haven't embraced or tried myself. Now, there's a lot of things that I teach that are not for me, but it doesn't mean that I haven't tried them. Like I really teach going out and exercising, but this body is probably 2 steps beyond some of the exercise that I would suggest to clients. I'm held together with a couple of nuts and bolts and plates and stuff, so it doesn't do too well for jogging down the road. But there's one thing that a lot of the self-care, I really believe in balance. I really believe in taking a rest. I've got a mini trampoline in my office here. It's propped up against my wall, and I jump on it 2-3 minutes as a palate cleanser for my brain every now and then in between client meetings. I'm very focused on getting out into the garden. So physical self-care, definitely looking at that. Emotionally, very important. So I belong to 2 weekly masterminds, and they are masterminds of like-minded people who hold me accountable, who help me see things in situations that I don't normally get to see. So I'm getting that intellectual and emotional support from masterminds. I belong to another 3 monthly masterminds, each of different makeup of people for different purposes, and very, very important. So just this morning, we were chatting about how it is to work within your kind of calling and what it is. So we have an hour-long discussion around some key topics that we can then take back into our own lives. So that care of not getting captured into the environment and taking that off ramp that goes, shiny squirrels, and off we go. And I think for me, it's very important. I love intellectual creativity. So I also do a lot of reading. I do a lot of thought processing, and I do that either by myself or in groups again with certain other people, where we'll take a random topic and we'll brainstorm it to death and create models out of that. But then on the other hand, to find good balance, I also love reading novels. So I'm reading this most bizarre novel about early America and the soldiers during the late 1800s. And it's just really interesting just to get that complete balance with it. So not to get sidelined and become laser focused only, but have number of, and it's about that balance. It's about care. It's about having lunch with my wife every day while we're working at home, that we both take a break, we both get out of the office, we sit out on the patio and we have lunch together. We have evening cup of tea after work together. It's taking weekends off to do work, and if I have to work on a weekend, then we take time elsewhere to spend time together to find that balance and that care. We also got a little dog which insists on walking every day, and it's brilliant because then we go for a walk, and at least I'm getting my 2 kilometers in of walking. And it's about looking at that mental, emotional, physical kind of health and care, because we've got to get that balance right in all that aspect. Not always easy, but concerted effort, and again, accountability. Even the dog holds me accountable with that long soppy face, like it's time for a walk and you haven't attended to me. Get up, come and walk. So it's good.
Bruce, I'm so excited to speak to, firstly, a man that speaks about, mostly if I ask a man what is self-care, he'll go, I go for a run 3 times a week, and I play with my buddies, and that's it. So and if I ask a chick, then she'll go, I eat chocolate once a week, and I have a bubble bath. So it's part of my passion and in sharing this message about self-care is that it's not just a physical thing. It's an emotional, mental, creative, a social, how we interact with other people. You're speaking about your wife, having tea, taking a walk with the dog, connecting, a real, authentic connection to ourselves and to each other. So I love that. Yay. Would you say that, or should I put it this way? How, having such a strong self-care regime or practice, how does that set you up to succeed? Does it set you up to succeed?
I think so, because it makes me strong for things. So when I need to focus, I can focus. And so I'm not running myself into physical exhaustion. And I'm able to be strong. So I have good focus days where I'm able to sit down and work for 14 hours and get a whole bunch done. Working with clients as well, coaching clients is hugely taxing emotionally and mentally. But then I've also got a really nice garden outside. So I just have to literally open the curtain here and I can go see the fruit of my labor outside, because there's nothing more rewarding than seeing flowers bloom that you planted and dug and stuff. So we put a lot of work into our garden, and that's also really nice. It's one of the things myself and my wife do a lot, is that every weekend we're working in the garden. The moment we're making a fish pond, so now we've got fish in our garden, and we got vegetables, and we got hydroponics going, and we've got all sorts of things happening outside, which then gives that, so I can nip outside for 10 minutes, restore that, and then come back and work. So I do think balance is great to make you strong and focused. But it's not all play and no work. It's definitely play a little bit so you can work hard. And when you work hard, don't get distracted. So I close the curtains and I sit and I focus, and I run kind of 1.5 hour sprints, then jump on the trampoline for 5 minutes, and I can keep going, then go have lunch and do the same thing. So I can pretty much get through a day there, making sure that, and I'm listening to my body. It's one of the things that I've learned, is listen to your body. When your body starts complaining, don't just turn the music up or take a pill. Listen to it, because it's complaining because it wants a walk or a stretch or a lie down or a good night's sleep.
I love that. And you speaking about jumping on your trampoline, I'd encourage people to go and look into rebounding. It has incredible benefits on the body. So I can see how it builds resilience, and how you're talking about being able to focus and having like productivity. Real productivity is when we take regular breaks. It's sitting for 5-6 hours straight. If you had to compare that with taking regular breaks, you would find that one would be way more, and I'm sure you can attest to this, way more productive when you take a couple of breaks in those 6 hours than if you worked straight.
Yeah.
So tell us about you've got so many different projects on the go, and I thought maybe today we could speak about the one that your passion project that you're really excited about.
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I'm in the middle of something that is so different to what I normally do. We are writing a 4-year curriculum for growing vegetables to solve the issues of food security in rural areas across the world.
Amazing.
And stuff. So and we've been funded by a couple of organizations to be able to do this. We got 3 different pilots going in early next year that we've already kind of starting to engage, and we are writing this simple lesson. So I've got 15 modules with 9 or 10 lessons each. So we got close to 150 different lessons in agricultural, and we're teaching it at the principle level. So we talk about the principles of agriculture and the principles of soil nutrition. And this week I've just finished an entire manual on all the different garden equipment, which has been fascinating. I've never written an essay on a garden rake before. But it's interesting there, because if you've got to look at the bigger picture of where we're going with this, because it's not just about garden rakes, it's about utilizing a garden rake to create sustainable food sources and income for people who are at the moment starving. And so it's not just about growing vegetables, it's about changing mindset, and it's finding the balance in people who didn't know that they had balance available to them. So we're rolling this out into South Africa early next year, and we are chatting to people in India to take this program into India. And there's are like 1 billion people who go to bed hungry in India. As simple as that. So where there's a need, well, hell yes, we can go and affect a whole bunch of people next year by what we're doing. And we've been really creative, and I've got here a plan. I've got 23 different uses for empty soda bottles to grow garden and vegetables and herbs and all sorts of stuff. So my little man cave downstairs is now a empty soda bottle factory or repurpose factory. So I'm cutting and molding and sewing and repurposing empty bottles into all sorts of things. I'm amazed at what you can do with an empty plastic soda bottle. It's phenomenal.
Bruce, that's so exciting. One of my favorite stories during lockdown was about some illegal immigrants. You might have read the story in Durban, and they were sleeping in a field next to the Durban Library. And they decided that they were so hungry. I mean, they didn't get the 350 Rand from government because I don't know if they're illegal immigrants, but they were immigrants. And they created a farm, an urban farm, and they managed to get the municipality involved, and the municipality gave them equipment, seeding equipment, rakes and all of that, and they've got this beautiful urban garden that they're now selling the fruit and veg, or at least the veg is more veg, that they're selling to the community in that community, and being able to live. And I just I love that ingenuity. I think that we're going to need to, and that's one of the things of COVID that I thought, you know what, generally cottage industries are going to become really important, and cottage industries being localized small businesses that serve that neighborhood. And that's really exciting. I mean, I a couple of years ago, I saw that, was it the Dutch? You'd know better, where they were building rooftop gardens.
Yes, yeah.
That's right. They started it. I think it was the Dutch that started. And I just think that it's such an ingenious way of creating food supply, and B, meaningful engagement with Earth. Engagement.
Yeah.
Life. I totally agree. There are far too many people who are unemployed and far too many people that are going hungry. And I think that sustainable cottage, urban gardens is a brilliant solution.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about this. So we training not only to help people feed themselves, but also create income streams from this. And it's amazing on how you can multiply your productivity with a bit of education. So if you know what humus is in soil, it changes your crop by 300%. In just one lesson, we can change that productivity, and to be able to control the insects and sort out and identify which birds should be in your garden and which not, and how to protect it. Just little things. It doesn't mean you've got to have an agricultural degree. You've just got to have a little bit of information and learn how to apply it, and it can change that. And if you've got a whole pile of empty Coke bottles, it's even better.
And Bruce, if I think about how many of the kids are falling through the academic system, they're struggling because they don't see the value. Unfortunately, they've been told that they're not academic, but actually they don't see the value in the stuff they're being taught.
Yeah.
What you're speaking about, giving people practical skills to be able to go in action and create a living for themselves, I think it's so brilliant. So brilliant. So what are you reading at the moment?
I'm reading a book. It's a bizarre book. It's titled "It Was on Fire When I Lay Down on It." It's by Robert Fulghum, and his first book he wrote, and it's titled "All I Really Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten." And it's an old book. It was written in, I think, probably about 40 years ago. I just check the date here. There we go. 1988 is this book, and this is his second book. And what it does is it gives an interesting perspective look at life with a bit of humor. And it's one of those like, I know that, but I don't apply it in my life. And it's a good kind of filler book that is. So I'm reading a novel in the evening. This is one of my kind of books, and I'm bridging that between a negotiation class about how to negotiate a good outcome. And there's a couple of authors that I'm reading, and there's a couple of things I'm watching online with that. So I've got my brain in kind of like an FBI hostage negotiation type thing. And then I come to this book, which just says, like, why do we don't just look at everyday situations and learn to laugh at them, but then also learn the principal lessons of saying please and thank you, tidy your toys away, play nicely with each other, do things the right way, almost what we call fractal behavior, which is doing little things on a regular basis that have a big impact. And I think we're too busy looking for the one silver bullet cheat code in life, like winning the lottery, or if only I could marry a rich person, or if only I won the lotto, if only I won the competition that would give me the latest SUV or so. And we live in this hope of one day maybe I might do, instead of just going out and doing. And if you start doing, if you go out and plant one plant in your garden each day, by the end of your first week you've got 7 plants. By the end of the month you've got 30 plants. By the end of the year you've got an entire garden. The year after that it'll flourish. Or you can sit back and look at your garden through the window and say, one day when I win the lottery, I'll get a garden service to come and make my garden beautiful. And I think one of the things that I'm reading, and I love this book because it's really funny. You can sit; it's a good refresher, like for the brain, and it just gives you practical little examples about why an old lady would push a pram down the road and not have a baby in the pram, and just how that fits into your everyday world. And you go like, hey, I'm that old lady, and what can I do better to not push the pram and get things a little right?
Would you agree, Bruce, that one of our biggest jobs as coaches is to encourage people to take action, right? So like nothing's going to change. Nothing changes unless something. What is that saying? Nothing changes unless something changes. And if we're not going to take action, then we can't transform our lives. My question is, how do you, like, my business is inspire, empower, inspire, transform. Those are the 3 values that drive my business. But this week I've been sitting with something that's really bothered me, and maybe you can help me, is that I've worked with clients that I wasn't able to empower, inspire, or transform because they didn't take the action for whatever reason. They weren't ready, for whatever reason. But actually, I don't know if I can inspire somebody if it isn't already there. I can highlight it, but I'm not sure I've got the skills, or anybody's got the skills to, dance 1,000 dances to try and encourage our clients to make some kind of change. We can suggest it, but if they don't actually do anything, like how, I don't know, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I take a very alternate view on that, is that I am firstly never going to apologize for who I am. And secondly, I will never want to coach somebody who isn't wanting to be coached. So with that, we have been very, very fussy in who we work with. And it's taken a long time to get to this point. So it's all very easy to say, oh, this is what we do, and like anybody can do it. But it's like employing staff. What is the staff member you employ, and how many interviews do you have, and types of, and then you employ the person, and the person you employ is different to who the person that interviewed, and then you're stuck with them, and it's very hard to get rid of somebody that you've already signed up with. So I think it's the same with clients, is that we don't work with the rugged individuals, the people who's going to sit back and say, oh, yeah, okay, coach me, I dare you, or yeah, I tried that last year and it didn't work. No, that's not going to work. No, I'm never going to do that. And you're going to sit there. So we very quickly to fire clients. And if anybody sort of comes onto any of our programs and has that attitude, we just sit there and go, you know what, I'm not going to invoice you for this month, enjoy, and we refer them to other people. And because there are people who've got techniques to, make horses drink and all sorts of stuff. We're not interested in that. So we're very fussy in choosing people right up front. So we've got a very strict kind of hurdle for people to join us, and we make it as hard as possible for people to become our clients. We push them away a number of times, and you've almost got to come back and say, Bruce, please. And I'm going like, no, go away. No, please, okay, now I'll consider you. And it sounds very simplistic, and there's a lot of kind of emotional psychology and selection process in that, and we've honed that, and we are continually honing that, and we haven't made a mistake for a while by choosing clients that we don't want, but still we push clients too much. The people who come on our coaching programs are subject to a pretty much a sprint marathon, and we wear them out. People break down and cry, and I'm not being, it's not something that we aim to do. But when change is hard for people, and change management in self, especially with self-employment and entrepreneurship and stuff, I ask you to change your company, and it's almost asking me to have a change your children. And people get very protective. So it is a very emotional journey, and it is a constant thing. So we have other ways to motivate people, and often I'll just slow things down. We just reduce, take the foot off the accelerator, and we slow things down. I've just got a client now that's just asked for a 2-month furlough. Just like, I cannot cope with this. Other stuff's happening in my life. That's fine. We'll put the brake on. We'll park this, come back next year. We'll then pick it up, and we can continue with that. But to force change, I spent time in a school that was very institutional. I did time in the South African Army, which was very military, funny enough. And that's kind of, do this, do that, and dare you question it. And I think if you want to get real motivation, you've got to lead people by walking next to them and get them to get to those aha points and get them to motivate, but also then bridge the gaps that they see in their life. And I think coaches are bridge builders and direction signalers. And I think with that, instead of being that autocratic leader to say, do as I do and you will become as great as me, don't buy into any of those programs. It's the idea of coaching people to their individual genius, and I think that's key.
That's beautiful. I love that, because I believe that coaching is a co-creative experience or relationship, and that we really do tap into each other's genius. There's another question I wanted to ask you. I'm interviewing Douglas Kruger this afternoon about his book being about, I forget, it's called something about not being PC. And I wanted to ask you, you and I are quite straight shooters. We're very similar in that way, that ons praat nie kak nie. It's straight up. But I'm struggling with this, and maybe you'd be able to point me in the right direction. Like, authenticity for me is absolutely key. But when is being authentic and trying and totally not having to be PC, because I'm so hurtful of being politically correct, but where does it err on the side of actually just being a doers? Sometimes and for me the answer lies in intention. Like, my intention, if I'm just trying to be funny for the sake of being funny, and I am just I'm being PC because I can, or sorry, I'm not being PC because I can, and then I'm trying to embrace my authenticity, but sometimes it actually just comes across as me being a doers. What's your thoughts on that?
I think certain people have got a license for a certain type of humor. If you look at this South African Nando's, they've got a license for controversial marketing. And why? Because they've always done it. Other companies have tried to copy them and fallen, flat back on their faces and ended up in court the next day. And I think certain amount of people have certain characteristics that they bring to the stage. And if I was up on the stage and I started swearing and telling blonde jokes, people would look at me and go like, are you on drugs or something? If other people went on the stage and they started speaking about bats and stuff, people would go like, what? Oh yeah, but I have who I am and I do what I do. There's certain words that go around in my head that I would never say to somebody. And I do restrain myself. So I think it's being politically correct, but also being tactful. And so, and I love where we are in South Africa, and I've got a very interesting thing. I was born in Zambia, right in the middle of Black Africa, but I'm white. And I don't have any culture because I can't trace my family back to any one culture. So I always tell people I've got as much culture as a ShopRite Checkers yogurt. And, and I play around with that. And once you make light of that, then you can make light of our different cultures. So I'm quite happy to engage people of different cultures and races in a group. And I think I do it quite well. Because I'm able to put myself in that square. Like, how do you think a white guy feels born in Zambia with no culture feels? Because I've got no history to fall back on. My mom here, my dad here, and my uncles there, and I can trace my generation back 2 generations to 16 different countries. I'm lost. I don't know who I am. Then I had to immigrate to the own country that I was, I immigrated into South Africa. I had to re-immigrate into South Africa when they changed the country. I had to learn a different song that I still don't know the words of, and now I'm supposed to be patriotic to a country that I don't know, but hey, I support rugby. And so we can find commonality around that whole thing there and enjoy that. But if people are being obnoxious, I have no time for that at all. And if people are trying to be funny at the expense of other people, I have no time for that. I love laughing together, not at. And I can make fun with, but not fun at. And I think that's a big difference with that. I do put my foot in a lot when it comes to male-female stuff, because I have a wicked sense of humor, and I'm becoming a lot more. Somebody said to me, I need to become more gender sensitive. So I'm trying. And I do know that I offend a lot of people because I've got a wicked sense of humor. And there's been a couple of times where, as I've said it, I'm going, oh, flip, and then my phone goes beep, 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 and there's complaints and stuff. So I do realize not everybody is in the healthy relationships or haven't been, hurt and stuff. So it is very difficult with that cross-gender. I find more problem being politically correct in gender issues than race and culture and age. Ageism is also something that I love doing, like all these youngsters and the old people, and no one tries to guess my age, but it's very difficult in age, but I think fun in it. But I still struggle with the female. I haven't mastered that one yet, so I've still got to work on that. So apologies to all the women out there.
And I think that's the crux of it, isn't it? Is that being authentic doesn't mean we're perfect. It's about being authentic to who we are, and if we make mistakes, it's being able to be accountable, take responsibility, and apologize. So
learn.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So how can our viewers get hold of you?
Well, don't. I actually don't want to engage you unless you are somebody who wants to change the world. Then if you wake up in the morning and you're having that, tune go through yourself and you think you're in that comic Pinky in the Brain that you want to take over the world, then get hold of me. If you've got an idea that you have got running around in your head and you don't know how to get from where you are because you're stuck, but you feel that you've been called to this purpose in life, then I'd love to engage you. And we've got this little offering, you can go to our website, which is em-solutions.co.za, and you just make a booking, and I will then engage with you for 42 minutes and ask you a series of questions and maybe give you a kick either forward or out. And that's the honest truth that I can help you with. But I love chatting to people. I love wanting to hear. But if you're going to phone me and say, like, woe is me, and what must I do with my life, and then I'm going to send you to somebody else. But if you really are wanting to change the world, and you have a purpose, and you kind of got a sense of that, you know who you are, but you just don't know how to become that fully you, then my door is open and I want to engage with you.
Amazing. I can highly recommend people get hold of Bruce. I've done some work with him like I said, with the PSASA, and I'm definitely a better speaker for it, and a better person. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of the Self-Care Diaries. We have the campfire conversations on Tuesday, and please get hold of me if you'd like a Zoom link for that. I wish you a beautiful day, Bruce. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you.